My name's Thomas, and I am a cadet with SSTG. I am going to give you a little PowerPoint presentation today, and that should be coming up now. Spot on. Just to say before I start as well, I see there's a chat section in here, and if there's any questions just throughout my presentation, it's not particularly long, but if there's any questions at all that you'd like to ask directly to me, I'll answer them at the end, and then the rest of the questions I imagine are going to be answered in the full Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. So as I said before, my name's Thomas Mill. I'm a foundation degree marine engineering officer cadet trainee, and I am studying at South Shields Marine School. So I'm in phase 3, which means I've been to sea once, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. So as Steve mentioned before, there is 5 phases in the actual course. So you've got phase 1, which is at college, and you've got phase 2 at sea, phase 3 at college, phase 4 at sea, and phase 5 at college. So I'm in phase 3 now, as I mentioned before, so I can only really talk up to there. And I'm going to dive a little bit into what you do in these actual phases. So my experience of the academic sections, before I actually got a cadetship, I came straight out of school with GCSEs, no A levels, and I went onto a course called the Level 3 Diploma in Maritime Operations, which is more commonly known as the Level 3 Pre-Cadetship. This is a college-run course and gives you enough UCAS points, which was mentioned on Steve's slideshow. This gives you enough UCAS points to actually get onto a foundation degree cadetship. So yeah, this gave me a solid foundation of the engineering mathematics that were to be expected of the full cadetship. A lot of questions that people ask before people get cadetships is, what does your maths need to be like? And what I always say is there is quite a bit of maths in the course, but you don't need to be a genius if you put the work in, that's to say. So yeah, I'm going to dive a little bit more into the maths in just a moment. So phase 1 is your first phase. You come in, no idea about engineering, there's no problem at all. And you get thrown straight into the deep end with short courses, which is things like firefighting, enclosed space, first aid, ship security. Personally, for me, the firefighting was just honestly one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life, to be perfectly honest. It's the feeling that you get when you're doing things like this. It's just unmatched. It really, really is. Like, for example, the firefighting, I'll talk for that one because that was my favorite. It's a 3-day course, which you go to a centre, which in South Shields it's called Most, which is where I'm studying, and it's just on the river. And you go down, and you have 2 days of learning in a classroom, learning all about your BA sets, learning how to don them and how to be comfortable in them. And then for your first exercise, you get something called a cold smoke exercise, which consists of you going into a building from the very top. And the building's full of cold smoke, which is sort of it's like a generated vapor from a machine, so you can get the idea of not even being able to see your hand in front of your face without the aggression, if you like, of a real fire, which is brilliant. You know, you get the trust in your BA set, and it just works so well. And you learn that your communications are so vital. And you do all sorts of things like that. And then in the last day, you actually have a hot fire experience. So you go in as a team of 4, again from the top of a building, and you've got to put out a fire at the bottom. And you've got to get stuck in, but it really is. It's great fun. The adrenaline rush that you get is absolutely unmatched. After you've done all of these things, you do what's called a PAO, which is it's a start to the actual mechanical side of things. So you get experiences on lathes, you get experiences in welding and fitting, and all of these types of daft little skills that just come in handy on a ship. So you do that, and then comes the academic section, which you do things like electrical principles and power, engineering mathematics, and then we also did something to do with like studies in the maritime industry. As for the electrical side of things, I was very, very surprised of how useful it came in on the ship, actually. With ships now getting more and more electrics in them. My ship, I'll get into that in a moment, but I was diesel electric, so it was nice to be able to know things like what a bus bar is, what a distribution system is, and you can really click when you're at sea with the stuff that you've learned in phase one. And then engineering mathematics, again, you're learning some pretty complex mathematics like calculus, Laplace theory, other general useful maths, but this is all catered towards what you're going to be doing in phase three, the sort of the more useful elements of maths rather than just pure maths. So yeah, that brings me to phase three. You're using the pure maths that you've learned in phase one to put it into practice for lessons like mechanics, thermodynamics, the electrical and electronic principles, which is a little bit more in depth. There was quite a few people when we did the Laplace theory specifically. You were sort of asking maybe questions like, oh, when are we going to be using this? And then you come back in phase three after you've been to sea, and you're actually using these transforms, if you like, to help you in your actual mechanics, thermodynamics, and all that type of thing. This is, of course, a big undertaking. There's no hiding that, but it's made a lot more manageable through the help of the fantastic lecturing staff. If you stay on top of your work and if you put the effort in, they will give you it back times 1,000. There's at my college, there's tutorial sessions on a Thursday with my mechanics teacher, Ian Robinson, after college, where you can ask any question, because really when you're doing subjects like this, no question is a daft question, really, as long as you put the work in. And just the teachers, they really do, they go above and beyond to help you. So C, the good fun bit. My first trip, I went to Japan, Philippines, China, Hong Kong, went to Taiwan as well, and oh, what an experience. So I worked for a company called Global Marine, or I should say I have a connection with a company called Global Marine, and I was on that ship in the top right corner called the Cable Retriever, and we worked in the South China Sea, repairing cables, international telecommunication cables, the fiber optics. And it was genuinely one of the best experiences of my life. I'll absolutely never forget it. I went away when I was 17, so quite young, and you can see there, how many 17-year-olds have stood in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. That video that Steve had at the start, where it says where are you going to wake up tomorrow morning, it sums it up perfectly. I remember being away, and I FaceTimed my dad, and I was up on deck. And we were in the port of Kaohsiung in Taiwan, and I remember him saying to us, he was like, "Oh, so where are you now?" Sort of having a bit of a joke, like, "Oh, goodness knows where you were." And I said I was in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, and it really just made it all real. Of wow, what a life I've got. It absolutely is. It's brilliant. It is hard work. Especially when you're on jobs, you can be doing up to 12-hour shifts because you've got rotating watches. But the work that you're doing, it is so diverse. There's so much that you're actually doing. You're not just sitting in an ECR or an engine control room. When I was on the ship, we were doing main engine overhauls on one of our 5 Wärtsilä 9R32 engines. We did a full main engine overhaul of engine 2, which took a whole month. And the ship that I was on anyway, like all of the officers and everyone, there was quite a big crew. We had 60 crew. They really get you stuck in. As long as you're happy to get stuck in, there's so much going on. Another big misconception of just engineers is that we only work on the engines, and there's so many systems going into a ship, especially when you start talking about ships with more crew, or especially like cruise ships. These ships are like small towns, and if you think of everything that's in your house that keeps it running, you've got it on a ship. The refrigeration systems for all of the food that you're keeping. You've got umpteen systems that go into the engine, like the jacket water cooling. You've got the bilges. You've got the lube oil. You've got the fuel oil. You always got something new and something interesting going on, whether it be overhauling a purifier. There's just a lot going on. But yeah, and again, just the experience. I mean, how many 17-year-olds can say that they've driven lifeboats around Subic Bay? It's brilliant. So the college facilities. At my college in South Shields, there is a halls of residence. I can't personally talk for how the halls of residence actually is, because I haven't lived there, because I'm local. But I've got a quote from one of my friends at college who's also on the foundation degree, and he said that halls of residence are a brilliant facility as travel to college doesn't even need to be thought about because it's literally on your doorstep. So if you're thinking of needing to move, you've got halls, which is brilliant because of course you're with so many other people who are in the same shoes as you, and you really bond together. You've got brilliant plant and machining and welding workshops, which, I mean, in the plant workshop especially, you've got systems like purifiers, you've got systems like just about anything really. You've like emergency bilge systems that you can afford to make mistakes when you're learning. You know, no one's perfect. When you're learning and understanding how systems work, you do get things wrong, and the plant shop is there to sort of pick up a little bit from your mistakes and go, right, you can make a mistake, yeah, that's no problem. So you're not going to make that same mistake on the ship, and it's nice to be able to get that experience first rather than learning the hard way. And there's just brilliant all-round support, as I mentioned before, with tutorial sessions and things like that. So yeah, so thank you very much for listening.